And China catching a bid overnight, nearing their highest levels of the year. Policymakers expected to host a press conference Monday where they may finally deliver on that long-awaited stimulus. In DeepSeek also driving Chinese tech stocks higher as the country teeters on an AI-fueled trade of its own. For more on what is next for China, let's bring in Dewardric McNeal, CNBC contributor and managing director at Longview Global. Dewardric, great to see you.
Great to see you also, Melissa.
I feel like we've been at this point before. We are on the cusp of potentially a big stimulus announcement, and then it's not exactly what investors wanted, and there's disappointment. Where are we in that, given already the 5% target was just announced at the National People's Congress?
Well, I think you're right on this announcement that I think people were trading on overnight on Monday. We have seen this movie before, Melissa, and let's see what the announcement is first before the euphoria kicks in. Let's see if it is indeed going to be stimulus, if that stimulus is going to indeed target households, or will there be some package of policies that they hope will trickle down to households. So on that respect, I think the boost overnight may be premature. But surprisingly, Melissa, I think I can make the bull's case for China over the near and midterm. I think the DeepSeek story, the DeepSeek trade, and China's AI sector could fuel this run for longer, the way we saw it fuel the run here in the U.S. So I think there's a bull's case to be made. I do think we have to be cautious. I think the overnight trading is perhaps a little premature, but I do see some room to run on the backs of China's AI sector, Melissa.
When Western investors think of stimulus, they think of handouts, basically, right? Checks made to households to spend. That traditionally does not happen in China. So can you just put into perspective for investors who might be trading on this notion that there could be a stimulus in store, how much of a pivot that would be for Xi, or maybe it wouldn't be after the National People's Congress and the pledge to stimulate?
Well, I think, we've been calling, many of us have been calling for direct household support, the stimulus that you talked about. That may not come, Melissa, largely because we don't know who would pay for that. Will there be transfers from the central government to the provincial governments to pay for that? And we know that provincial governments are still in some financial trouble. What I think we will see from Xi is not a pivot necessarily, but an adjustment is how this will be couched, in that you can no longer depend on the U.S. market, export-led trade, in this global trade environment to drive your economy. Therefore, we do need to stimulate consumption, and here's a package of policies to do that, which is how I think this will be couched if it materializes. But I think we have to wait. We have to see what is announced and what the time horizon is, which is also important here, Melissa.
Dewardric, it's Tim. Thanks for joining us. So historically, we would hear from China big stimulus packages around infrastructure, bridges to nowhere, et cetera. And that would probably not be seen as positive. Obviously, there's a real estate bubble, not necessarily with the government. But if this government made an announcement around tech infrastructure and really talked about the type of spending that some of the hyperscalers are doing, but talked about whatever that number is, but a stimulus package that really was around where the strategic interest is right now, very different than a lot of the infrastructure build. I mean, how different and how much of that could you expect? I don't think that's a story that the markets really are expecting.
Yeah, this is a very good point, Tim. I think that feels structurally different to me than some of the stuff you mentioned in the past. Yeah. And I think that will probably excite investors a lot. I think, and going back to where I think there may be some room to run, I think it is in the tech sectors. It is in the AI space. And an announcement like that, while not satisfying those of us who have been calling for household support and increased wages for households, I still think an announcement like that, very structurally different than the stuff we saw last year, could provide some additional fuel for a run, Tim. I think you're right here.